Take a good look at these two images. Both have blurry backgrounds, but the background blur in one of the images is actually fake and AI generated using the new lens blur feature found in Lightroom. The background blur in the other image is 100% real and has been done in camera. But can you spot which is which? Welcome to the Photo Genius channel. Hi, welcome to the Photo Genius channel, where I share regular photography tutorials, tips and tricks to help you get more from your camera and of course take better photos. If you are new here, please consider subscribing. So let's take another quick look at the two photos of our dog Boo. And I can now reveal to you that the image on the right is the one that has the artificially blurry background. Please let me know in the comments if you got it right. Now, if we remove the fake blur, this is how the image looked straight out of camera. So Lightroom just got an upgrade and now features a brand new tool called Lens Blur. Using this, you can take an image and blur the background. This is a very popular look and technique often used by photographers as a way to draw the eye to the subject and remove distractions. It's particularly popular in portraiture. Now, the correct photography term for this is a shallow depth of field. So in this week's video, I thought it would be fun to put artificial intelligence up against good old-fashioned camera technique. So I've got a few more images to share with you, and once again, I would really love to know if you can spot which is which. Plus, I'm going to demonstrate the lens blur feature in Lightroom, as well as share my top 3 tips for creating blurry backgrounds in camera with no software or editing required. So let's take a look at some more images and let's see if you can spot which is camera technique and which is AI. So let's begin by comparing these two images of a water dragon, and let's zoom in so we can really be critical and see the detail. Now what you will see is that one of the images has significantly more blur behind and in front of the subject, and this is a bit of a giveaway because out of these two images, it's the one on the right that was edited in Lightroom, the one on the left, that lovely shallow depth of field, that was down to using a lens set to f2. Now this one may be a little trickier. I really do like taking photos at night, and I really love the blurry circular bokeh look in the background behind the Brisbane sign. But can you spot which is which? Again, let's zoom in and take a closer look. Now I think the background blur in both of these images looks pretty good, but the one on the left is the one that was done in camera, and the one on the right, that was the AI generated background blur. Did you get it right? Let me know in the comments below. Next up is an image of a sign, and in the background a boat that is clearly out of focus. And of course here is another image of the same sign, and once again the background is out of focus. Now side by side these images look very similar, and I don't think there is any clear sign to indicate which image is which. What do you think? So now let's remove the AI generated lens blur and see if you got it right. So now I want to demonstrate how easy in Lightroom it is to take an image that looks like this and turn it into this using lens blur. And by the way, if you want to give Lightroom a go for yourself, there is a free trial version available. You'll find a link in the description below this video. So a very quick edit of this pelican image in Lightroom. First thing I need to do is to go into the develop module, and from all the options over on the right hand side, I'm going to click on lens blur. Now currently lens blur is a brand new feature under development, hence the little box here which says early access. Now to begin with, all the controls are grayed out, so you can't actually make any adjustments until you've applied the effect. So no surprise, I'm going to click where it says apply. So the AI will kick in, the software will start to analyze the image, and this process could take a few moments. So as you can see, the effect has been applied, the background is nice and blurry, and I actually think this looks pretty good. Let's have a quick play around and zoom in and check it out, and I think actually it looks pretty neat. Holding down the eye icon is a quick way of just checking the before and after, and another good tip is to go down to the bottom left hand corner of the screen, click on the YY button, and you can see the before and after side by side comparison. Now you can increase or decrease the strength of the blur using this slider. By default it's set to 50%. Now below that you'll find the bokeh section. Now this gives you the ability to change the look, size and shape of the bokeh based on different types of lenses. Now with this image it doesn't really apply, but if you've got an image where there are lots of bright highlights, so night photography would be ideal, changing and adjusting this can be fun. Next up is the focal range section, and the easiest way to explain this is to select Visualize Depth. Now this displays what Adobe call a depth map. This is pretty neat. With the lighter colours for the foreground, the pelican here is magenta, and the darker colours represent the background. Now using this adjustable slider, you can adjust the range of depth values that are in focus, effectively moving the focal plane. So if I drag the slider into the yellow and turn off the Visualize Depth, we can see that the foreground is now in focus and the subject is out of focus. To fix this, all I need to do is to move the slider to the middle where the magenta colour is, and that's it. The subject is now in focus. We have a blurry foreground and background. Now there's also a refine tool giving you more control, but I might save that for another video. If that's something you would like to see, let me know in the comments. Now for me, depth of field is absolutely 100% something that I'm thinking about and considering when I'm actually taking an image. That might be choosing a particular lens, using certain camera settings, all decisions that I need to make to get the look I want. And I want to share some of those tips with you in just a second. So, is the lens blur feature found in Lightroom something that I'm going to personally use? Well, I think yes, sometimes it will be. Let me show you an image. So I took this during a recent street photography course that I was hosting here in Brisbane. It shows two of the participants comparing images, and I wanted to share this image as an Instagram story. And I did that a few days ago to create some more interest in the next street photography course. Now, I have to admit this image has been edited in Lightroom, and yes, I did use the lens blur feature. Now here's the original image. This was shot on a Fujifilm camera using a 35mm equivalent lens, which is a reasonably wide lens, ideal for street photography, but when using a wide lens you won't typically get a very blurry background unless you're really close to your subject. Now whilst I think the original image is okay, I do find the background elements just a little bit distracting. So here it is with the lens blur added at 50%. Now I think this actually looks pretty good, and this is the version that I shared on Instagram and it got a heap of likes, which was the whole point. Now this is a version with the image blur set to 75% and this is at 90%. Now let me show you a couple of examples of where the background blur hasn't really worked so well. Here we have an image of a Chevy truck applying the blur, and things don't seem too bad until we take a closer look. As you can see, partly around the mirror and in particular looking here through the window, we can see that the trees in the background, which should be blurry, are not. Now this amazing McLaren 720S I shot a few nights ago here in Brisbane, applying the lens blur, and whilst I do like the effect, there are again some issues. For example, as you can see, the guardrail that's running along the wall is blurry, which is good, but looking through the car we see the guardrail is sharp and in focus. Now there's also a few strange artifacts that shouldn't be there. Now the lens blur feature is still in development, so whilst it's far from perfect, it is going to get better and better over time, and it's another tool that you can choose to use if you wish. And I get it, editing and processing images using software like Lightroom isn't for everybody. I often meet photographers who tell me they would rather grow and develop their photography skills so that they can get the best possible shots in camera, and that's largely what this channel is all about. Now this of course leads me nicely into my top 3 tips for blurring backgrounds and creating a shallow depth of field. So tip number 1 is to use a wide aperture. The aperture is a feature of the lens. It's a great way of controlling how much light passes through the lens, but also affects depth of field. The wider the aperture and the lower the f number, the more shallow the depth of field will be and the blurrier the background will be. Now tip number 2 is to use a longer focal length lens. Now this refers to the numbers on the lens, which are measurements in millimeters. So with this lens, for example, whilst you may get some background blur at 50mm, a better result can be had simply by extending the lens. This of course is commonly called zooming in. Now tip number 3 is easy, get closer. Of course this isn't always going to be practical, but the closer you bring the lens to the subject, the shallower the depth of field will be, as you can see in these images. Now for a more in-depth look at depth of field, see what I did there? I've made this video. If you want to check it out, I'll pop a link up here, also at the end of this video. Now there's a good chance that you're watching this video and checking out my channel here on YouTube because you want to be a better photographer, not a lazy photographer. Being able to control depth of field is something that I really enjoy doing, and I would rather make that happen where possible in the old-fashioned way using good camera technique. But of course we live in the digital age. Tools like lens blur, they're there to use if you wish to, and I'd love to know your thoughts on this. Is lens blur a feature that you will be using? Let me know in the comments section. And a reminder that if you want to try Lightroom out for yourself, there is a free trial version available. You'll find a link down below in the description. So that's about it. If you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a thumbs up because it helps the videos get noticed. That helps the channel grow. Of course, consider subscribing if you want to see more content from me in the future. And that is about it, other than to say thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you again sometime soon. See ya. Bye.